Surely you have been a part of different groups of influence. Surely you've been a person who's tried to hold on to your values and principles, but you've been a part of groups that have had different values, different principles, and different morals. I've experienced that, I lived that, and I'll tell you the short version of confession on that. As a teenager, I had a number of groups of influence. One of them was a church group. One of them was the Boy Scouts. Another was a neighborhood group of friends. Well, I can tell you that that neighborhood group of friends did some things that helped me to see a little closer and clearer what kind of friends they were. I was visiting with that group of friends at one point, and I was sitting, and one of the guys in that group pulled out this little baggie. Now, some of you will get a look of recognition as I describe this baggie. They pulled out this baggie, and it had these little green leaves in it. And the little green leaves are kind of weird. I hadn't seen them before. Some with little flowery stuff, but mostly stems and seeds and stuff. And then they not only pulled out this little baggie, they pulled out this little cigarette pouch paper thing. And they took some of the stuff out of the little baggie and they put it on the little cigarette thing and they rolled it up and they licked it. Now, I had seen that on the Westerns before. Guy rolling up his own cigarette, but I'd never seen that among my friends. And so I said, you know, that's a different kind of cigarette thing you got there. And they said, sure, sure. You think it's different now? Just wait a minute. They started smoking this thing, and then it had a weird aroma. And it started making my head feel all kind of funny. And I wasn't sure what that stuff was, but I thought, wow, this is different. And I decided at some point it was time to go home. So I went home, and I noticed when I got home, I was hungry as all get out. I went into the kitchen and I tore through everything I could find. Well, that substance that they had became identified. It was marijuana. Those folks didn't just have it and smoke it. What they said to me was this: if you like it, you can have as much as you want. And in fact, if you like it a lot, you can just sell it, and then you'll never have to pay for it. Interesting things, huh? And I wasn't real sure about that thing. I went and talked to some other friends. I was in a circle of church friends, and I told them about that little pouch. And I told them about that little funny smell. And I told them about getting hungry afterward. And they, oh. And I had two reactions from my church friends. Two distinct reactions. One reaction from some of those friends in the church group was, it's going to hurt you. It's illegal. It will mess up your brain and mess up your body and mess up your relationship with God. You need to leave it alone. There were other church friends in the youth group who said, can we get some of that? Can we get some of that? They really are going to give it to you for free? Go ahead, take it. That's all right. Okay, look at number 1 on the screen. Practices inconsistent with the... See, what happens, it happens in Thyatira, it happens in our relationships, it happens among friends, it happens in churches. There are influences. And some of those influences are not only inconsistent with the faith, they're just plain harmful. On an individual scale, there are influences that will hurt you. They will hurt your marriage. They will hurt your relationship with your kids. They will hurt your relationship at work. They will hurt your relationships at church. They will rip you apart. It's really just that simple. And so this church in Thyatira had to sort out and understand they had some good things going on. But this influence from this person called Jezebel was introducing things into the body of Christ that were like a virus or a poison, slowly creeping in with an introduction. All they needed was a little space to step in, and that influence would begin. Let me say that in a different way, and I want to reiterate something I said last week because it's still important, and I still think it's true. Last week I said, parents, you have the right and the responsibility to get in your children's business. And I said last week, and I'm still saying it, all up in their business, not just tiptoeing around it, not just watching, not just asking. Parents, you have the responsibility. And I said to the kids, you have the responsibility to hold your parents true to the faith and the things they've taught you. Let me be real simple about it. In a household, parents, you want to say I love you to your children, and you want to hear I love you. Now remember, that's not always going to happen. I've learned that from being a dad and being a husband. That's not always going to happen. Sometimes the mom's going to get mad at the daughter, and the daughter's going to get mad at mom, or dad's going to get mad at son, and son's going to get mad at dad. And they're going to wonder in the midst of that struggle and that challenge of relationship whether they ought to say I love you or whether they ought to get those kids who can. Well, and you know, let's be real. Children have this innate thing wired in. And sometimes they won't say I love you. What they'll say is, I hate you. Now, we who are parents, that's a dagger, isn't it? It's a dagger. And you don't want to hear it. And sometimes you don't want to hear it to the extent that you just might feel like if I just back off. Well, we parents have to sort out whether the battle is worth it or not. Whether it's worth it to hold to a standard of saying, we in this house have this belief and this faith. It is who we are and what we live. It is what we are accountable to. And we're not going to back off of that. And so if you're going to be influenced, that influence is going to remain good, healthy relationships. Getting in your business if you're kids. Holding to a standard that does some of those great things that church at Thyatira did. I love you. We're going to be in service to Christ and helping the world. We're going to be a people of faith. And we're going to hold on through the difficult moments. I want to say that same thing in a different way. Because before Helen came along, and while Helen has come along, Helen's my daughter, we've had one conversation consistent and had the reminder over and over. And it started with me saying to her when she was very young, Helen, I want you to be able to know that your body is your own. And when you say no, you mean no. And there's no influence and there's nobody out there that can change that. Helen, I want you to understand your faith and our faith is important. And anyone who comes along who disrespects you, who disrespects your body, who disrespects our household, and who disrespects our faith, we can do without that. We don't need that. We don't need anything in our lives, and we try to be real clear because you see those things that want to influence, there are lots of them out there. I recognize that our teenagers are being bombarded with emails, texts, phone calls, conversations at school. They're being bombarded from every side. And some of those influences that are inconsistent with our faith and are waiting to really just slip in like a virus, they really, though, some of those things will just cause a wedge. So let me make it real plain. Helen may like some boy. She knows, and she and I have had this conversation. But if that boy gets in the way of the relationship between you and your mother, he's got to go. This choice is real simple. If that boy decides that he can't respect you when you tell him no, he's got to go. It's real simple. If he comes into our house and he decides he likes what he sees and he's going to steal it from us, he's got to go. Here's the door. Thank you very much. That's not who we are. It's not how we live, and it's not the faith we hold in this house. And we try to be clear about modeling that. And we've been, and you know, it's interesting because every now and then, you know, children will see parents talking. And the reflection and the words will be, I don't want to hear y'all argue. I like that. You know why I like that? Because the children are holding us accountable for whether we're living or what we're teaching. That's not a bad thing. I want to give you one other example. At some point, Helen and Teresa decided that they wanted a dog.